Hello everybody. Well, I'm certainly putting the dough into Doha tonight because I didn't bring a hoodie.
Oh, this is perfect desert wear. Because actually, last year the Qatar Grand Prix, bizarrely, we're in the middle of the desert, really perhaps the hottest race of the season.
41 degrees, wasn't it?
The media centre, unfortunately, couldn't adjust the air conditioning, so we had to have blankets and hoodies and stuff. So I'm well prepared this weekend, unlike you.
Foolish. My wife said to me, 31 degrees in Qatar, don't take a coat. The thing is, never take Phil Collins' advice. What was that album of his? You don't take a coat. Anyway, let's get into it. Massive developments this week as the FIA president has been cleaning house again. And if you thought he'd cleaned house before, well, he's cleaned house again. Maybe he should flat share with Ron Dennis. So Janette Tan gone as deputy race director for F2. The current F1 race director having to multitask.
Yeah, it's been interesting. So basically, this first story broke the second I walked into the media centre today. Couple of text messages and speaking to other journalists. So yeah, Janette Tan, who was supposed to step up to be F2 race director after Rui Marquez stepped up to be F1 race director after Niels Wittich was dismissed from the FIA, she's gone, basically, which now means this weekend Rui has to run Formula 1 and Formula 2. Quite a tough call on a sprint race weekend. There is some help from race control, there is help from the remote operations centre, but I think it's indicative of kind of a growing concern about what's going on at the FIA. We'd also merge that Tim Meyer, who's been an FI steward for 15 years, son of McLaren founder Teddy Meyer. He's gone as well.
Yeah, fired by text message, a little bit like the aforementioned Phil Collins allegedly divorced his wife by fax. So, not a very polite way to get rid of someone who's worked for you, especially, with the FIA, you have so many volunteers who give their time freely. I think it's fair to say, not a great look, is it?
Yeah, so the drivers, I think George Russell summed it up today, said at a time where we want greater clarity from the FIA on what's going on, we aren't getting it, there's no communication. He said he read about the Janette change through the media. This isn't the way communication should be taking place. He gave me like a cheeky reference, said I wish the FIA will tell us who they're sacking next, just to move on. So against this background, you've got a bit of chaos in the FIA. But on the flip side, there's a meeting tonight between Rui Marquez, the FIA, and the drivers about driver guidelines, which have come into the spotlight this year, particularly after Austin, that controversial incident between Lando Norris and Max Verstappen. The rights and wrongs have been debated. Should Norris have got the penalty? Should he not got a penalty? Should Max have got a penalty? We seem to have got a few answers, and the drivers are suggesting now that this kind of obsession with get to the apex and do what you want isn't going to happen anymore. But it seems to be some more positivity, doesn't there?
There has been an outbreak of positivity, hasn't there? The one thing for me that came out of the Max session, obviously, I think after Mexico, there was that now famous quote, George Russell saying 19 out of 20 drivers are on the same page about this. And there was a little bit of pressing on Max about people saying, clearly it's you, it's the one. And he's going, no, there is no one driver who's not on the same page. Max's default position, it's almost like a recorded message when he's asked about this, is that it is a factor of the circuits. And if you have circuits where there's too much runoff, there will always be scenarios where people will be tempted to chance their arm into a tricky corner. If every corner had gravel bounding it, that wouldn't happen. So quite simple, quite logical. I kind of agree with you, actually.
Yes, track change is a topic. Actually, we come here 12 months ago, tyre chaos, basically. After first practice, Pirelli found these kind of microscopic lacerations in the sidewall, prompted a bit of a drama over the weekend. In the end, the FIA stipulated 18-lap stints in the race. It was being caused by these pyramid curbs, I think, or officially known as Misano curbs.
Yeah, because they're not quite pyramid shaped. They're more sort of slightly melted Toblerone, aren't they? Yeah.
So they've been shaved down this weekend. Some gravel strips have been put in. You walked down to the track today to have a look.
I did.
Is it a good solution? Are we kind of confident there won't be a repeat?
This is the point where our industrious video team will edit in some of those marvellously arty shots I took, having walked down basically into the mother of all headwinds. It was blowing a gale up the main straight this afternoon. But yeah, what they've done is they've shaved the tips off those curbs. And then in order to sort of militate against drivers thinking, well, I can drive all over those curbs now, they've bounded them with gravel. So it's kind of a two-pronged solution. And Pirelli are obviously hoping that all the energy that goes through the tyres will not be sort of put through a sharp object at the end and then a firm drop. Because I think what the problem was, I gathered last year, was that they weren't really 100% sure whether it was the actual motion of the car riding over the sharp edge, or it hitting the ground, or a combination of the two,
or coming back on.
So a combination of a three-pronged problem. They could eat with it rather, use it as a utensil. So even though they've done simulations with the new curbs, it's still pretty much what Donald Rumsfeld would call an unknown known, or a known unknown.
But I think equally, this track limit problem and curb problem in the Red Bull Ring this year, they had this solution which is now being adopted at a lot of tracks. It worked well there. It should deter the drivers enough, because they're pretty wise and know if there's gravel, it's not very good for grip.
Don't go there. And as Max said, when asked, it could take years to modify all these circuits, he said, tough luck if they won't have Formula One. Do it.
So the track, let's talk a little bit about the track as well. It's a high-speed track, which kind of also triggered some of the problems last year. It's super smooth, closed track surface, so cars can run very low. And if you're Mercedes, having come out of Vegas where it's cold, you'll be loving this cold weather as well. They can run their car low. The curb should suit them well. There's none of these kind of low-speed turns where they can't get the front turned in and have to boot it around and overheat the rears. They seem quite confident about this weekend. And it's actually a race, George Russell said, actually, out of the 3 final races, it's the one he preferred the most. So much he asked, would have preferred an older engine for Vegas to save it for here. But in the end, that's not happened. He's won Vegas. So he now says that the trade-off is having a race-winning engine here, which is a bit better. But how do you see the form book here? Where do you think McLaren are going to stack up? Because they're the one I'm not really sure where they're after Vegas.
It's interesting, that was the point of your question to Carlos Sainz earlier, wasn't it? It wasn't just how are Ferrari going to do, what's the kind of the relative pace of McLaren going to be? And it's difficult, isn't it? Because they did, I won't say they sacked in Las Vegas, but they didn't do as well as they kind of thought or hoped they might do. On paper, maybe a circuit like this might favour the McLaren, but like you say, as you can see, my fingers are going numb. So it's not exactly Baltic here, but it's not warm. So Esteban Ocon said earlier that we might even see some tyre warm-up issues because they're bringing the hardest range of tyres. It's a lot colder, as you say, smooth surface, very closed. So we might see front axle disagreeing with the back axle, problems with warm-up. It's going to be a very different race from what we saw last year, I think.
It's good. So beyond the track stuff, a little bit of driver market, kind of not, I'd say pigeon steps rather than any dramatic developments. Mercedes confirmed today, and Mick Schumacher confirmed he's leaving the reserve role at the end of this season. I think his planned ambition to come back to Formula One is not happening. He's going to pursue racing activities elsewhere. That, of course, leaves opportunity for Valtteri Bottas. He's leaving Sauber end of this season. He was interesting in the pen today, actually. Quite chatty mood. Revealed he had an IndyCar offer for this year, which he contemplated. Thought, I'm not done with Formula One. I'm not going to finish. He said I might do some one-off races. So I asked him, what's on your bucket list for next year then? One-off races, and I quite liked the fact he said Indy 500. You'd like to see Bottas at the Indy 500?
Oh, and for the flying mullet. And of course, because with the schedule change that's coming over the next couple of years, it's not going to clash with Monaco, is it? So it's something he could do, and the Americans are going to love him. They love the moustache, they'll love the mullet. They won't like the strong coffee, but who knows?
And also, bit more kind of chatter about Yuki Tsunoda and Red Bull. He's got the Red Bull test post Abu Dhabi next weekend. He was talking today, about it, a bit of frustration from his side about not, being viewed as top of the list to step up if Sergio Perez isn't there next year. But he's been in the simulator. He says the car suits him better than the RB.
That was a development, wasn't it? Yeah.
Looks an interesting prospect. Could that test be the spark that gets him in the Red Bull?
Could it be magic, as Barry Manilow and Latterly take that sang? So, and that really means the stakes getting higher for him over these last couple of races, as he really wants to have a mistake-free couple of rounds to, drive home the fact that Christian Horner really should be considering him.
Yeah. So we'll be back tomorrow. It's a sprint race weekend, which is normally they're completely manic and never really be able to catch up with stuff. Practice in the morning, sprint qualify in the afternoon. I think it's going to be fascinating. Drivers' Championship is done, but Constructors is all to play for, and there's money at stake. And when money's at stake, it gets really spicy.
Yeah.